And if the interface has not the option for a checkbox, let's say, for your strategy you want to propose to solve a problem, then you are usually not allowed to solve the problem for the society. So I think what power hierarchies actually do is they steal computational power from the participants the society is emerging from. People will tell you power hierarchies are efficient because they centralize and manage way better than any other structure of management or organization could do it, right? They would maybe even argue that China is super efficient and stuff, right? And I think this is not true. And what we can observe usually is that if people would actually do exactly what they are told by power hierarchies, for example, in a bureaucracy, nothing would work anymore. And I think what we can observe instead is that stuff works at least a little just because people find a steady flow of workarounds and maybe even partly some almost illegal stuff to find ways inside of the restrictions they are given by the power hierarchies to solve problems, right? Because humans are not easy linear programs. Humans are more like some kind of AGI. They can generalize over what they know and extrapolate to find further solutions of more difficult problems and stuff. Yeah? And to me, bureaucracies and power hierarchies usually tend to organize themselves as poorly written code, right? And you can even observe it in like artifacts such as that I just wrote. I just have read a blog post by some guy from Google, and he states Google is so big it can't innovate anymore because its own hierarchies inside basically make it almost impossible because of bureaucracies. And there is like this risk of still innovating is too high, right? The opportunity costs are too high, so better not to innovate and stuff. And yeah, I think if you think the world from like the data science point of view or as a programmer, then you can ask yourself, how would you find good solutions of logistic problems and stuff? And I think usually tasks that somehow need serialized management. Let's say you have a lot of black boxes and the output of one thing is the input of the next one and stuff. So you have a chain of like black boxes. Then maybe centralization of coordination or something might be a good call, maybe. But if you have something you can parallelize, usually I think centralization is absolutely awful because you do not need like the control anymore. And then also as a programmer, you always need to think about like where are the bottlenecks of computation, right? Where can you find empty flops or wasted flops inside of your algorithm and stuff. And I think where is like potential for more efficient solutions when they are not centralized controlled, right? And I think centralization maybe at some point might be needed in an organization of like society and stuff if you need to agree on a certain interface. For example, a standard of communication, right? For example, something like what we can observe in our internet space, right? We have a protocol. We agreed upon this protocol, but not about the content, right? And I think it's never actually good idea to restrict strategies or like content. So we would talk about strategies inside of the society context, right? Solve problems of society and stuff. And the more easy the task is, the worse the control dogma becomes, right? Because usually if a task is super easy, who needs to control stuff that people do this stuff right when it's so easy that everyone can do it, right? But in bureaucracies, especially here in Germany, we can observe that a lot of shit is restricted by control. You always have to keep papers with you that show that, yeah, you did the super easy stuff actually right, and you are not allowed to without some kind of papers and stuff. So what we have is basically you can't do shit without someone giving you permission to. And someone usually is not even a person. Sometimes it's a person, but usually in Germany at least it's some kind of bureaucracy. It's some kind of ministry or whatever. And yeah, and if the interface has not the option for a checkbox, let's say, for your strategy you want to propose to solve a problem, then you are usually not allowed to solve the problem for the society. So I think what power hierarchies actually do is they steal computational power from the participants the society is emerging from, right? Then they gather all this power and then they centralize it. And yeah, what comes out is, of course, because they have less computational power than the majority of people they are enforcing their restrictions onto, they will become super inefficient. Because no matter how big the ministry or the bureaucracy or whatever control organism you have and give your power to, it has less computational power than all the participants that are below this power structure, right? So imagine in the worst case you are some kind of Stalin, like, right, Joseph Stalin, and I think if you are as powerful as Joseph Stalin, you will go crazy because you just can't solve the NP hard logistic problem of society. You can't, right? And this is why you will enforce everything with violence. And in the end, your solution is not working. And this is not a surprise, right? Because you can't even grasp what the problem is, because usually in such power hierarchies, even information gain is impaired by the effects of your violence, right? Because this is like the violence you are enforcing on your own hierarchy. And I think the same stuff goes for like least worse solutions such as a state. Usually states are like power hierarchies as well, right? We all know it. And I think actually the state can't solve problems. I think the state is causing a lot of problems. And even in states that work pretty well, I think from like an anti-capitalist standpoint, even structures such as Sweden or Denmark are not optimal, right? So I mean, I'm not sure, right? If you would enforce a lot of like education and democracy, so to say, actual democracy, right? Participatory movements and stuff inside of your state agenda, then after a few generations, the state could become obsolete, right? And then you would have some kind of anarchist, utopia or whatever. But because we have no. So worldwide, on the large scale of the planet, I think we do not observe this, right? We have a lot of power hierarchies that are basically battling over their own power, and they are in always in competition to each other, which of course introduces a lot of artifacts we can observe, such as war. And I think the state is not even providing all the stuff he is telling, right? I mean, states tell you they provide human rights, but what we can observe is only if you have enough privilege, then they give you something that feels like they tell you a story that you have human rights. But if like the opponent that wants to fuck around with you is just a few ranks up in the society ladder, right? If he's just more powerful than you, then your human rights are obsolete. And this is what we can observe, right? If you are Edward Snowden, you have no human rights. And if you are a poor person from another country and you want to still live somewhere, you have no human rights. You are just dying as some refugee in some concentration camps or something, right? This is what we can observe. So I think worldwide human computation power can't be used just because we have a lot of states. And even if these states are interchanging human resources, even then, because the interfaces of the states they are not compatible to each other, it's not working, right? They do not share an interface, so it is not possible within their own Zettel logic to provide humans like an interface to agree upon each other. Even if they could, they are not allowed, right? And and I think if you are like an anarcho-capitalist, this holds still true, because ANCAPs, they say, okay, fuck the state, but they do not understand why to fuck the state, right? So they do not understand the shit. I think on markets, a similar way of data processing will emerge. Just because if you call like the data processing that you gather in some kind of pyramid structure, if you call it Google, Amazon, or state, it doesn't matter, right? It makes no difference. Big monopolies will always need some kind of systematic control hierarchies, which will become what we call bureaucracies and ultimately a state. I think this is how states even like emerged, right? Big corporations or capitalists right now, right? They need states anyways, and I assume states are a result of capitalists class agreeing on an interface to have like a sustainable influx of human resources while maintaining their property rights against the majority of people. I think this is what the state are for. And again, if you see big corporations such as Google, I think they are internally more or less structures as some kind of state. So to me, this makes no difference, right? And of course, the internal structure ranges from straight Stalin dictatorship to some kind of, let's say Denmark, right? But worker co-ops, for example, would be some kind of anarchistic community, more democracy stuff, right? And more structured in smaller groups of democratic structures even there, right? So I think because we grow up with this dogma of control, it makes it super unclear that control is an illusion. But I think what we can observe is that control is an illusion. And I think we can observe that control is not working. It would be much better to give humans their computational power back, so to say, and let them find solutions for their local problems. And the blueprint is there, right? The blueprint is there. I think it's called solidarity principle. This is like first principles, and after that, everything could emerge. But just another small video for you guys. I think I will try to replenish this English channel, as I already said, to something like this, right? But for now, bye YouTube.